Hello and welcome to the Managed Stage Kickoff for 13.10. 13.10 will be released on March 22nd, 2020. The team will be going through and talking about all the amazing features and things we're working on in this release. Normally, we get started with compliance. However, our compliance group is recording a separate video, so stay tuned for that. You can find it on our YouTube page. And so next up will be our access group, which is led by Melissa. Melissa, tell us about all the things you're working on in this release.
Sure. Let me go ahead and share my screen real quick so you guys can follow along. So the first, there's a couple of interesting features that we're tackling in this next milestone. The first two are around hardening SSO for GitLab.com. So if you remember, or maybe you don't, a few milestones ago, we lowered the SSO timeline to 7 days. But because every time the 7 days were up, it required a user interaction, a user click to re-log in, we decided to leave it at 7 days. We've since improved where we make a request to the IDP behind the scenes, so there's no user interaction needed to basically refresh the SSO token. It's all automatically done behind the scenes. So based on that, we're gonna now lower it to 1 day. So every day, GitLab will reach out to the IDP and make sure that user is still basically has a valid session at the IDP level. So for example, with Okta for us. If they are not logged in, they will have to go through the login action. But this greatly improves the security posture that we have on GitLab.com, and it's something that our customers have been asking for. The next change also related to SSO on GitLab.com is that today we only check for an SSO session for activity in the UI. So now we're going to start checking for a valid session on Git activity. So basically, if a Git operation is attempted against a project that's part of an SSO enforced group, we'll check to see if there's a valid SSO session, and if there's not, we'll have to instruct the user to go to the UI and logged in. That's not a perfect experience, but it's really not possible to do that SSO handshake through the Git command line. So basically, it will require the user to go to the UI if they haven't, within 24 hours for anything else to refresh their session. This will be an optional configuration item. So basically, if a specific group doesn't want to inconvenience their end users, they don't have to, but in the long term, I do see this being something that would be enabled by default, since a lot of enterprise customers have been asking for this. The next iteration of this will be through to enforce SSO on the API, but that's not in this milestone. Just giving you guys some idea of where we're headed. The next item is around an epic that you guys may have heard me talk about, which is just building a more consistent framework for how settings are set and cascade down from groups to subgroups and from the instance to groups. So for our first iteration, we're focused on cascading from groups to subgroups. And we've built a POC where basically subgroups can look up the hierarchy and up the stack to see if there's a setting that's been set by a parent, and then the parent can optionally lock that. So for example, the first setting that we're migrating is delayed project deletion. So you as a group administrator can say, I want all projects in my entire hierarchy to have a 5-day soft delete, right? And I want to enforce that. We use that as a testing ground for a setting and to develop the framework. But basically, this will allow anyone that has settings to implement it in a similar way, and that way it's consistent across all groups at GitLab. So we, like I said, developed a POC, and now we're going to be hardening and rolling out this first feature. And then also along with this, doing some communication internally to let other groups know that this is available and they can start using it. So super exciting to see this come to fruition. And last, performance and security. Our always focus is for the access team, so some of our capacity is allotted to go toward that. And that's it for access. I see some questions.
I had a question, and it was in regard to the SSO timeout going from 7 days down to 1 day. Does that mean that, like, if I log in each day, I won't be prompted to log in, but if I go home over the weekend, on Monday, I always have to be prompted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not too aggressive in a way, given that, you know, people typically do go over, like, you know, do go away for a couple of days per week.
It's actually preferred by enterprises that do SSO enforcement, because it does basically ensure that there's still a valid user in their IDP. Now, if in their IDP they have that timeout set to longer, right? Let's say they have it set to 5 days. We'll just reach out to the IDP to see if there's still a valid session. And if there is, basically that interaction will be invisible to the user. If there's not still a valid session in the IDP, that's when we would prompt them to re-log in.
Oh, okay. So that wouldn't automatically log you out over the
No.
weekend, depending on their settings then.
Correct. Yeah,
Oh,
we
that makes sense.
just check to see if there's still a session that we can refresh GitLab with.
Oh, okay. That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I had a similar question, Melissa. Basically, I mean, it sounds great that that we'll probably be able to more quickly adapt to any kind of changes where a user's permission may have been updated since the last time they authenticated, and so now it's kind of a maximum lag time of like 24 hours. That sounds great for a lot of. I'm sure it's a comfort for a lot of folks out there who might have users who have changing permissions, onboarding, offboarding, what have you, from there. Real quick question on Git activities: is that planned to work with SSH keys as well as HTTPS, or how is that going to work for a few different of our access types on the Git activity front?
Yes, and I'll actually go back after this call and double check that that's not the issue, but yes, that's the plan.
Cool.
We have a similar model for device authentication, where basically we're following what we've implemented there.
Okay, I had a question too. I'm not sure if I understood this correctly, but if you want to look at whether a configuration was set by a parent group, do you need to go to the parent group to see that, or can you see within your subgroup that it was configured at a higher level?
No, you will be able to see it within your subgroup. So basically at the time when a subgroup is created or you go to see settings, there's a lookup that happens where we basically go up the stack to see if it's been set anywhere and if it's been locked anywhere. So that's invisible basically where it came. Well, it won't be invisible where it came from, but you as a group owner, subgroup owner, won't need to have access to that parent.
Okay, that answers my question about permissions. I wasn't sure if you had to actually navigate up the hierarchy to find that.
No,
Thanks.
it'll appear there.
Okay.
All right, so that's it for me.
Okay, I will go next, and I'll share my screen so we can follow along. So for import, we are going to continue progressing against the new GitLab migration feature. And what we plan to do in 13.10 is to complete the migration of epics. Right now we have the actual epic, the description and title coming across. We have the parents, the labels, and the word emojis coming across. What we're missing is comments and events. So I expect in 13.10 that we'll be able to wrap that up and then have everything about an epic migrate across when you migrate a group from one GitLab instance to another. What this will, I can just also show sort of what this looks like is in 13.9, we have enabled a feature flag. So this is now visible in prod. So in addition to being able to import a group from file, which is the old way of doing things, we're going to be able to do this by directly communicating with another instance of GitLab. We have put a beta warning and kind of asked for feedback here because this is definitely work in progress. It is not mature enough to where, I really don't expect a lot of real usage to come out of this. It's mostly going to be people testing the waters and seeing what it is while kind of watching how it's being developed. So we'll make sure to stay on top of documentation and like have the user understand exactly what's coming across, what's not, while this is still being developed. So once you do connect to the other instance of GitLab, you see something like this, to where you have kind of all the groups that you have access to at that other instance showing here, and then you can select sort of where you want to migrate them in this particular instance, hit import, and the group will get migrated. So in addition to completing the epics, we expect to make further progress against the epic called parity with group export import. This is the epic that once completed is going to have, it's going to mean that all the functionality that exists in the existing group export import will now exist in the group migration feature, and we will be able to deprecate the group export import once we reach, once we complete this particular epic. This epic, has probably another, 10, 15 issues in it to be completed. So I expect this to happen over the next 2 milestones at least. But I expect to make a good dent in the remainder of this parity epic in 13.10. So that is definitely going to be where we continue working on migrating objects other than epics that belong on that belong in a group, such as milestones, group labels, and any other object that lives in the group. So that's going to be kind of the flavor for 13.10. In addition to that, we are going to continue paying attention to the UX improvements all along. So the track that I talked about is mainly backend, kind of making the feature more deep and more kind of more featureful. But in addition to that, we're also changing the user experience of someone who is using this feature so that they can more easily see what's being migrated, select what to migrate. So this experience is going to be vastly improved over what we've had before. And the one thing that I want to highlight for 13.10 is the ability to have a selectable page size for our list. So the list of groups that I'm showing here is short for me, but imagine if you were a big company and you had hundreds of different groups. Our pagination defaults to 20 items per page. And if you had 1,000 groups, it means you have to visit 50 different pages in order to migrate them all. So what we want to do is help out a little bit with that. We want to introduce a new concept that doesn't currently exist in GitLab. And we're working with Pajamas with the Foundations team to sort of define this so that it could be used elsewhere where we have lists. And the concept is such that we will be able to click on this dropdown that says 20 items per page and select 50 or 100 as choices for the page. 100 is currently a backend limitation in our API, so we won't be able to pull more than that, but I think that's going to be a great improvement going from 20 to 100 items being able to be displayed on one page. So once this is done, hopefully others can take advantage of that as well, and hope to actually get this completed in 13.10. Finally, I actually think that's it. That was all I had to share. Now I see there's some questions. Josh, you want to ask yours?
Yeah, thanks, Harris. I can't wait for my epic award emojis to carry over. Super excited for all my thumbs up and stars and maybe a few thumbs down. We'll have to see. Quick question on, you mentioned it was behind the feature flag that was turned on. Is that on by default for our self-managed customers, or should they expect to see this in 13.9 and 13.10 or? So
great question. This is off by default for self managed, because as long as it's in beta, so as long as it's not something that we want people to actively flock to, we're going to keep it that way. We will flip it to on when it becomes a viable feature. Right now, it it may be a distraction. I've asked some users and talked to some users who are at enterprises, and they say, like, even if we turned it on, when they see something that's beta, it means not use it. Like enterprise customers and large customers will tend not to want to use things until they're baked much more. So for now, we're keeping it off and hope to be able to flip it on in maybe a milestone or two. And yeah, the award emojis, I want to just go back to that comment. You would not believe how many people love their emojis, and when that functionality gets broken in migration, we hear back from people. It's like you wouldn't think, but yeah.
Yeah, I want to make sure all of our demand, right? I mean, that's how we prioritize things in GitLab, right? Is how many thumbs up they have. So, we'd be lost.
It's a big thing. Larissa, you had the next question, I think.
Yeah, I had a comment. I really like the pagination option to have more than 20 items on a page. We have similar limitations in Optimize. In our value stream analytics page, we currently just limit the number of issues that are displayed there to 20. And we have open issues to increase that to 50 and add pagination. And so I will definitely let the team know about the work that you're doing there.
Cool.
And mine's just really quick, that Harris, I always enjoy seeing your updates because I feel like you're doing a really good job iterating and taking kind of like bit by bit of something as huge as migrating groups. So good job.
Thank you. I think Larissa's next.
Okay, sharing my screen. So we have a nice collection of value stream analytics improvements coming. Some of them are rolling over from 13.9, so you will have heard me talk about these already in the last kickoff. And then some of them are brand new work that we are launching. So for value stream analytics, we have been working on replacing this vertical navigation with a horizontal navigation up here. And the reason for doing this is to create more space on the page so that we can display more valuable information. We have done most of the work of wrapping up the horizontal navigation. So we will, in 13.10, be removing the vertical navigation. Next one I'm really excited about. This is one that rolled over, so I have talked about it before, but currently we have, for each stage in a value stream, we have a list of issues or merge requests and the time it takes to complete those items. It's not very interactive right now, so we're converting this to a table and adding the ability to sort. So then you'll be able to easily identify issues within that stage that are lagging and take action on them. And then over here, you see we have the median time. We're also going to be adding the average time it takes to move things through a stage. And so that will be a column within the table I just mentioned. And then value stream analytics comes with a set of default stages. To understand what those default stages are actually measuring, you have to go in and edit the stage. So we're going to add some tooltips that make it really easy for you to understand what those stages mean. And we are adding an overview tab. So it looks like this. It's going to be an overview tab that appears for each value stream, and it will give you an overview of your total lead time for the value stream. It's also where we're going to put some of the more overview metrics, like the DORA metrics that we're going to be introducing. And then we're going to start work on refactoring project level value stream analytics. So what I've been showing you here is the group level feature. If you go to the project level feature, you'll notice that it doesn't have anywhere near as much functionality. So we're going to be refactoring the code to use the group level code and reach parity on these two features. And next we have a set of DevOps adoption work. So we have been working on a DevOps adoption table. This is available to admin users on the self-managed instance. It shows you what your feature adoption has been. So what GitLab features you have adopted for different groups, and you can add whatever groups you want to this table. So we're getting very close to launching that. And then another one that I'm really excited about is adding this table to the group level, which makes it a lot more accessible. So our GitLab.com users will be able to access it, and anyone with reporter or higher access to a group will be able to see the feature adoption for their group. Next, we are starting to pick up work on DORA metrics. The 4 DORA metrics have become an industry standard for measuring how quickly and reliably you can deliver software. And there is a lot of demand from our customers to show these in value stream analytics. The release team has also been implementing these in the CI/CD metrics. So our first step here is we currently have, let me just switch over and show you. Up in the group value stream analytics, we currently have the number of deploys and the deployment frequency, but it doesn't really align with the definition for DORA. And so the first change we're making is currently we measure this based on when a deployment is started. We're changing this to, actually already in 13.9, we changed this to be based on when a deployment is completed. So you know it was actually successful and completed within that time frame that you've selected. And the next change we'll be making is to limit this to production environments, deployments to production environments. So that's in line with industry standards and with what we have in the CI/CD analytics. And finally, we've been working on the user busy status. So you can set your status within GitLab to show that you are busy. We will also be adding a setting in here so that you can automatically schedule to remove the busy status. So that's another thing that we were aiming for 13.9, but is rolling over to 13.10. Melissa.
Yeah, so I think the DevOps report is really cool and just showcasing the value that people are getting from GitLab. And I was wondering the columns, like issues, MRs, approvals, all of those, I believe, are those hard coded, and basically can groups go in and add themselves if they wanted to, or how does that work?
Yeah, so right now you need to be an admin and come in and add a group. And they are Boolean values. Unfortunately, I don't have a good demo set up to show the positive view. Like this is showing that nothing has been adopted for any group. But let's say that my group 7 has been using issues, then this would be a filled in circle. And then that's based on within the last, so in the last calendar month, did that group use at least one issue, create one issue.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of, this is very much an MVC, and we have a really exciting vision for where this is going to go. So this is a super basic form. I think one of the next iterations we'll make here is to add the DevOps stages as the columns at the top, and then have more fine-grained features within each of those stages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this one would be something that would be interesting to see if there's interest from other groups and crowdsourcing. I don't know how difficult that could be, but if somebody like for example, with me from Access, I'm interested in showcasing something Access related here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the next things I want to do, is to go around to each of the PMs and figure out, what do you want to highlight in this table?
Mm-hmm.
Josh, you had a question?
Yeah, I'd be curious on how we kind of envision folks using the busy status. It's pretty cool that we're kind of adding more options there. Yeah, can you elaborate kind of what we're thinking about there? Or?
Yeah, the idea was to see whether a user is available to assign them as a reviewer to a merge request. So we started working on this before we had the reviewer dropdown. So right now it's only actually available in the assignee dropdown in merge requests and issues, and it's available through other parts of the UI too. Like if you mention someone in a comment, you'll be able to see if they're busy. So it requires some more iteration to get to our target use case, but that was the idea behind it.
Gotcha, cool. And well, I'm trying to think of how it might apply to like the code approvers workflow and things like that, but I don't think we've yet landed on the like reviewer roulette feature, unfortunately.
Right, which I think originally this was being developed for some of those features that we were working on.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, it'd be quite useful. Yeah, when it kind of if it takes you out of the pool for a period of time would be nice.
Exactly.
Awesome.
I just have a quick note. I really get excited about analytics, so I just can't wait to test try some of the improvements and the new view once you remove the sidebar, and let you know how it goes.
Great, thank you.
Awesome. Well, I think that's it, and we're right at time. So thank you everyone for listening to what we're working on here. Hopefully you're all as excited as we are as far as what's coming up in 13.10. And stay tuned next month for 13.11. Thanks, everyone.